that here Technologies is partnering with Wayne State to bring this hackathon to Wayne State campus. And beyond here Technologies, we're also partnering with the city of Detroit, as well as SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Coalition of Governments. And the idea is to basically allow our students to get creative, form teams, and take advantage of here platforms and the data that is available through the City of Detroit data portal, as well as the SEMCOG data portal, to have a lot of fun in ideating solutions around the urban mobility, health and well-being. So if you missed our previous information session, it is also available on DevPost platform. They hack the Motor City Hack, website that's part of the DevPost platform. And of course, this session will also be recorded and posted there. So the actual hackathon itself will take place, scheduled to start on April, Mark, is it 7th? Thursday, April 7th, and it'll be a 24-hour hackathon in our student center, we'll take good care of you in terms of providing food and snacks and water and coffee and things of that sort, so you guys can have a lot of fun. So with that short intro, hand it off to Steve Hale and Jonathan Hernandez from Here Technologies that will talk to us about their platforms and more. And these platforms will be available for you to, take advantage of in the hackathon.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the setup. Really neat event. We did hold a very high-level information session, and we've got a pretty packed agenda in a very short period of time today. The intention is to accomplish a few things, and it will go pretty quickly, thus the recording, and we will share this content afterwards. The goal isn't to make you all experts in Here location services in the next 40-45 minutes. It is to introduce you to how to create a Here limited access or limited plan account, which will provide you access to these location services. We're going to take a review of the location services, talk to them a little bit. Of course, there'll be links shared in terms of developer guides for each of them so you can dig in. We'll also be sharing a few demos and locations for you to access these demos. So once you've created your account, which does not require a credit card, you'll have access to these demos as well as the location services, which all come, the ones we're sharing, all come with a free tier. So a lot of power at your disposal, and hopefully you can be very creative. Again, we'll share all the content and the recording, and we don't expect this to be a one and done. I think we're going to repeat/build on today's session next Friday as well. And we'll also be supporting the hackathon itself. So without further ado, can you see okay, or should I go into presentation mode?
We can't see anything yet, Steve.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I can see. I can.
Oh,
see.
can you? It's myself then.
Okay.
Sorry,
it says I'm sharing. I hope I am.
Okay, I have it now. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, good. So, and I'm going to get through this fairly quickly. You'll have this as a reference document, but probably a good first move is to set up an account on the Here platform. And to do that, you want to go to developer.here.com. And when you select pricing at the top of the page, you'll see something like this, and it's going to describe the limited plan and what's available to you. There's some links here. You might want to familiarize yourself. I mean, we don't think it's going to be an issue in terms of the transaction limits. There are 1,000 free daily transactions that you can execute. The list is actually at the end of this presentation. But there are numerous location services or RESTful APIs, if you will, that will be at your disposal that you can use for free when you have that account. And as mentioned, and we'll touch on a little bit too, a lot of demo links that will allow you to get familiar with and kind of get a head start and even potentially leverage the code in those demos just to kind of hasten your progress and process. So with that said, was there a question?
Yeah, Steve. So even on my very big monitor, the font sizes are quite small. So maybe we should put it on presentation mode so they can see.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's definitely better.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate that. So, and you can just walk through these stages and you see the red arrow. At this point, you can review. And if you scroll down, I'm sorry, let me get back to this. When you get to this page, feel free to scroll down and actually review the location services themselves. I didn't try to capture 27 screenshots, but I wanted to call that out right here. So you can also review the daily, and RPS basically is requests per second. Again, should not be an issue for you, but do review on this page and then go to sign up where the red arrow is. When you get to sign up, it's going to ask for your information and it wants to verify your email. So once you populate that and click verify email, you will actually receive the email. At that point, you can do one of two things: either click the link in the embedded within the email, or you can actually copy and paste it into your browser as well. So at that point, you are starting to cook with gas, and it will ask you to set your password, what country you're in, and agree to the terms and conditions. You'll want to, as highlighted in step number 8, skip the billing. It'll call out location services in particular, and this is that limited plan tier. So there's no risk whatsoever of any kind of cost associated with this. And then ultimately click on the Get Started button. At that point, you will land on our platform portal landing page, and a lot of things to explore here. My recommendation, and this kind of builds on our first information session, would be to select See All the Documentation. What that's going to take you to is the documentation for here services, or this landing page right here. And effectively, you can drill into these. You'll find developer guides, helpful hints and things to educate you on how to dig in deeper and potentially leverage these APIs for your projects. We're going to share, and you have at your disposal several APIs. That does not mean you're going to use all of them. Maybe you need one of them, maybe you need 3 of them. I think that's going to very much depend on the use case, but there's a lot available at your disposal. The recommendation at this point, and as mentioned previously, we'll build on this with another session next week, and we're certainly not going away, but my recommendation would be spend some time on this page in particular, just kind of drilling in and getting familiar, and hopefully the combination of what we share today and next Friday will start to resonate and help you come up with ideas of some really valuable ideas for this project. And I believe that is it for this one. I broke these out into separate presentations, and we're going to move quickly, so I apologize for the pace. I just want to make sure we get a lot covered, and between the documentation and recording, you should have some good references. So,
any questions? I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions for you, Steve.
Sure.
Are there any questions? I guess not.
And the hope was, hopefully we'll have at least 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the session, although I did want to leave. I don't know if we've got anybody from SEMCOG or City of Detroit. I know our intention was to provide a few minutes to share their open data portals as well, because a lot of our capabilities in conjunction with those data sets will feed and power your ideas, if you will.
So Steve, we do have Stephen from City of Detroit.
Fantastic. Great. Welcome, Stephen. All right, I'll go ahead and put this in presentation mode. So hopefully we're good here. And we're going to go through a handful of services here. And again, this is not meant to be exhaustive or turn you into experts overnight. It's an introduction. So you have an idea of what the services are, and that will also be augmented by a couple of demos at the end of the session. So we'll move along. If it's a pressing question, go ahead and interrupt, but we'll again try to save a few minutes at the end to dig in. This I'm not going to drain a whole lot, but the idea of here location services is really a set of APIs, a rich set of APIs to afford the opportunity to apply location intelligence to use cases to solve business problems, real world problems, enablement, and kind of fuel your creativity along with your aforementioned data sets. So again, we'll share this. I'm not going to read 4 paragraphs to you, but I think you kind of get the idea of where we're going. Within our location services suite, really kind of built around what we like to call, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this was a build slide, but that's okay. What we call our real world index. So, I mean, a combination of having the best navigational or navigable map on the planet, combined with geocoding and search, transit, mode of transportation, our routing algorithms, which that will be something we demo a little bit later, factoring a number of things that you can populate to get the most intelligent feedback in terms of routing, overlaying real-time traffic information, along with the geospatial database and attribution against that map, and then ultimately the ability to render it. We provide that sort of a smorgasbord, if you will, right? If you're building an application, you can certainly leverage our web services, the REST APIs, JavaScript interfaces. We also fuel mobility. So these applications can be companioned, if you will, for lack of a better term, on Android, iOS, Flutter, etc. Jonathan, I'll pause for a second. Anything you want to add, please feel free to jump in and interrupt me as we go.
Sure. I mean, here I think I'll just echo, right? When thinking about it from your mindset, when you're thinking about how you'll be creating solutions, right? We have the real world index, that's the content data, but we make it available through the outer circle, which is a transit API, routing API, traffic search, and geocoding, which would be the easiest way, I guess, to leverage some of that data just through a RESTful API interface. And then another step as well is leveraging the web SDK on the left-hand side there, that allows you to, again, do the same, use the JavaScript wrapper to, again, access the same geocoding, search, routing functionality. So it's a bit of how our ecosystem works and to be able to enable your projects.
I appreciate piggybacking on that. And I mean, it's a good call out. You know, our data sets are incredibly deep, and how you access them is really the what we like to think of as the secret sauce, and really pointed to the use case, because it can be overwhelming as far as just considering what we have to offer. So hopefully compartmentalizing it based on your approach is helpful. So we're going to jump into here routing. And basically here routing isn't just a routing API. It's a collection of, if you will, or a suite of APIs, from basic routing for cars, trucks, a lot of intelligence built in for electric vehicles, multimodal transportation from bicycles to transit. I'm going to show that a little bit, I think, in the isolining routing part of the demo. Isolining, and that's something I personally think could be very applicable to some of these projects that get developed. The notion of isoline routing is based on time or distance. How far can you go? All right, and to generate in a polygon, and some really cool visuals come out of it. So, for example, if you're in location A, I happen to use the location of Soldier Field. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. Sorry for those that are Lions fans that I have no doubt are on the call. But as a starting point, right, that may be a place where, okay, if I'm walking, a lot of people walk to and from the stadium, how far can I go? What's included in that that polygon, if you will? But maybe I'm taking public transportation, or maybe I'm taking a car. How far can I go in X amount of time, or distance? And again, we're going to demo that capability, but I think it's and again, the polygon, if you will, that it generates is something that could be very valuable to your applications and visuals.
So
route
Steve,
matching. Yeah, go ahead.
Steve, if you don't mind. So let me give them a context. So, we are talking about city of Detroit, and the access, for example, during COVID, there are large parts of the population that struggle to gain access to, for example, COVID medication, hospitals, things of that sort. So if you care about if we care about urban health and well-being, isoline routing would be a way to basically see, if I live in this zip code, what can I reach, right? I have some kind of a disability, what kind of an access do I have to different kinds of services? So that's where we want to tap into things like isoline routing.
Exactly, and the combination of walking in or public transportation with an overlay of, say, what medical facilities might be within a given range may call out a glaring gap to a particular demographic or a region. So that would be a fantastic sort of concept or use case, as you called out, Abu. Route matching, and I'm not sure if it's going to be relevant to this audience in this project or not, but the notion is to take GPS traces and effectively ingest them and churn out what the most likely navigable route was, and along with even map attribution going on top of that. Matrix routing is going to be out of scope for this project. I do not believe that is available for the limited plan. Waypoint sequencing may or may not be applicable. The notion, we always call it the traveling salesman challenge, right? If you've got 8 places to go over the next 6 hours, what's the most efficient way to do that? So that is a high level of what that suite offers. And this just basically gets into the same a little bit more. Again, we're going to do a demonstration on routing. We provided the developer guide link so you can dig into what that suite affords you, and we'll move on in the interest of time. I did actually keep in a slide just for isoline routing because I think it's very germane to what you might be trying to accomplish here. So I wanted just to call out some additional detail, much more detail available in the developer guide as well. But this gives you a sense of how it demonstrates range based on a parameter of time or distance. That can even be folded into, and I don't know that EV routing and or range is going to get into context here, probably not, but I'll move forward. So here, map attributes, as Jonathan alluded to in one of those first slides, we have an immense database of attribution against the global map. And depending on the use case, those attributes can be particularly valuable, certainly not all of them. And that's where we, from an architectural standpoint, break things into layers. Just imagine, the best sandwich you've ever had, right? You may not be a fan of mayonnaise, but I really love mayonnaise, or vice versa, right? So depending on what your use case is and what attribution lives in what layers, that's where you're going to want to look. When we get to the demo section of this, we're going to provide you a link and show you how you can look at the attribution in particular layers and decide what attributes you might want to pull in. The thing about map attributes as well is they can be an adjunct, if you will, or piggybacked onto location services calls. So from a coding standpoint, let's say I do a route match and I've got 200 lat longs or in my GPS trace. And along that route that I want you to match, I also want you to tell me A, B, and C about that road, about the environment. And again, depending on my use case, I'll use, and the demo will show, I'll use ADAS for an example, which when you start thinking about autonomous driving and cars, lane keeping assist or automatic lane change, what is the slope of the road? What, what does congestion look like, et cetera? We'll get into those attributes, but the point is you can leverage attributes either individually or as a companion to a location service API call. Jonathan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not. I think the demo will kind of help demonstrate that a bit.
I think we can move on. I think the demo will speak a lot more to this.
Okay, fantastic. And again, this is a little bit of call out, be focused on the base package. I don't think anybody's going to get into premium data sets here at this point, but vehicle types, route types, street types, function class. And when you think about a functional class for a road, typically that's 1 through 5, right? So in the most urban setting, a small neighborhood road might be a function class 5, or a highway or a bypass around the city would be a 1 or a 2 limited kind of access. So that's what we mean by functional class, in addition to administrative polygon displays and road geometry, shape points, if you will. Underpass and overpass is the example called out here. So moving on to here, map rendering, and I'm largely going to turn this over to Jonathan to speak to, but of course, there's the likelihood that you would need to, and I don't think here is the only place you're going to be able to get some visualization opportunity. I do believe City of Detroit and SEMCOG might have some things to offer here as well. But Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you for a second.
Sure, perfect. Thank you. So I think this renders a bit of our portfolio for rendering altogether, right? And so there are a few options that can be leveraged for this project. So we have on the left-hand side vector tiles, map image APIs. And so vector tiles and map tiles effectively leverage the way, and it's fairly standard in this industry, where we cut up the world into boxes effectively, or tiles. And then you would be able to request per tile and then piece together to create a map. And most renderers, map renderers today, whether it's our JavaScript API or Leaflets or any other open source client that renders maps, can already connect to vector tiles or map tile APIs directly. So it's a matter of giving them the destination, and they know how to piece it together to create a map. Map image API is a little bit more, where it allows you to, for example, create a route and then take a screenshot effectively of that route and of the map that covers it. Then on the right-hand side, we have the map JavaScript API, which when we talk about the demos or go through the demos today, we'll be using our JavaScript API. It's a very, very easy to use library that allows you to, again, generate a map. And it's actually pulling data from vector tiles and map tiles in order to do that, but it handles the rendering, it handles the connecting, and you just get the user experience of being able to pan and toggle through a map.
And maybe a good call out there, Jonathan, is, for the client side of things, not only does it simplify, but I think it takes some of that load off, or the need for an intermediary potentially, depending on scale, right?
Correct.
I think we've got one more slide here. I don't know if there's anything you want to talk to. We're certainly going to include this in the documentation we share.
I think this just calls out, again, the JavaScript API that we have. So that library allows you to control a few different things within the map. So makes it easy for you, for example, create the info bubble that's shown on the top left corner, allows you to customize colors for certain polygons. Maybe it's park areas, maybe they're building footprints, and allows you to color code or change the styling of them fairly easily through just using JavaScript libraries.
Excellent. And I'm just keeping track of time here. We still have a long way to go. And again, apologies if this seems too quick. The idea isn't to make you experts. It's an introduction with reference points to where you can dig into to more documentation, and we'll continue to follow this up with another training session. So geocoding and search, or what we call GS7, is just that. And for those not familiar with the geospatial industry, the notion of geocoding is to take an address and turn it into a geospatial reference, or what we call geocoding. So think latitude, longitude. So in other words, if this address, 52 Rumang, we want to turn that into something that we can actually reference against a map. And that wouldn't be an address per se, that would be a lat long. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, SEMCOG and maybe even the city of Detroit are also offering a geocoder. So I think you've got several of these at your disposal. You'll also find, when you get onto our portal and start digging into documentation, you can also reverse geocode. So in other words, if you had the coordinates, you had a lat long coordinate, you could reverse geocode that to an address, to a place, to a location. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how to leverage this capability. Also at your disposal, and part of our location services suite, is real-time traffic. This is something that may or may not be a benefit to you, but the idea is to help inform. This isn't necessarily a historical look, but it does offer the ability to look at forecasts, I believe, a day and up to a week in advance, real-time, incidents or things to be alerted if there's severe weather, that kind of application, if you will. But it certainly applies traffic flow. It also is leveraged to inform a routing algorithm. So for example, and as we get into the routing demo, you'll see that our routing API allows for time of day considerations, and to whether you want to prioritize, hey, I want the shortest route possible, or I want the fastest route possible. If you're driving in the city of Detroit at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, there are probably going to be some traffic considerations. So that's where it may come into context for you. On the left side of this slide, you get an idea in terms of what it presents in terms of flow and incident data that would be available to you. And I think last but not least, I thought I hit this slide, but this kind of calls out the same thing in terms of what standard is offered to you at no cost. So from flow data, incident data, lane closures, some lanes are reversible depending on the time of day, in addition to traffic safety warnings. In addition to traffic and weather often go hand in hand. Our destination weather API also offers, in fact, I think I was starting to fuse them in my head because I kind of connect them in my head as well as we were talking about forecasts. This gives you an idea and the ability to apply weather intelligence geospatially to a problem you may be trying to solve. And again, another capability in API that's at your disposal with that freemium tier, if you will. It is a RESTful API with either a JSON or XML output. It does provide conditions, forecasts, alerts, etc. And I think that's it. It certainly kept, there are some exceptions, but I don't think they're going to apply here as far as China and North Korea. Last but not least, may or may not be applicable, but our here positioning API is effectively an opportunity to derive location without GPS. So the idea is we've effectively built along with our cells, leveraged a crowdsourcing sort of ability to define, and it's Wi-Fi based positioning based on cell ID. Neighboring cells, etc. I didn't put in all the numbers against this, but it's I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most accurate. In the absence of anything else, it is certainly potentially a valuable attribute or way to determine location. So we are at 12:32 and actually only 2 minutes behind my target. So I think we're making good progress. This might be we can take just a minute. I don't know if any high level questions have come up. Again, there's references to all of these APIs and developer guides, and happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
So quick question here, Steve, on that. This so here positioning API, would it allow one to make inferences about density of people in different neighborhoods and things like that?
Actually, I think the underlying data might. I don't believe that would be exposed via the API. In other words, the infrastructure leveraged to provide the capability would certainly be an indicator, would be how I'd best answer that, Jonathan. I don't know if you have anything to put on top of that.
That's right, Steve. So we use crowdsourcing and collect all the data and look at the aggregate view, right, and understand what the connections are. And so as an API itself, what we require is a single mobile device will tell us what network connectivities it sees around it, whether it's GSM, LTE, CDMA, those kind of things that are available on the Android or iPhone device, right? With that, we look at our database, our aggregates, and then we tell you, we infer your location. So it's being leveraged, but it's not being exposed within this API.
So it's sort of anonymized.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, sure.
Which is a whole nother topic we could spend an hour on, right? We actually have an anonymizer, but that's beside the point. But you bring up a very important concept in our space, right? Protecting identity. All right. So we are getting to the fun part of this. Let's hope the demo gremlins don't show up. Again, I want to share this content, and I'm going to kind of toggle, I think, between, let's see here. Maybe I won't. I'll go ahead and just kind of go through these quickly, and then we'll get to the browser side of it or the demo side of it. This first slide has a link to basically our free to use demos. And when you get to, and I'll show you what the actual page, you can see based on the size of the scroll bar, there are a ton of these demos that will be available to you once you set up your Gear account. So this is a link to find them. We'll actually be, I think, showing one of these, but quite the repository of demos that are available to you, and even potentially be able to leverage code out of those demos. One of the demos within that particular suite we're going to leverage is a basic simple map, and so you can call up a location, zoom, slide around the globe, if you will, zoom in on it, and then by leveraging the developer tools within the browser, actually look at the code behind that. Additionally, we're going to look at call an RME with ADAS speed demo. RME is route match extension. So we talked a little bit about the concept of route matching. So if I've got a GPS trace with X amount of points as shown here, and again, we're going to look at the demo specifically, but the idea is to return, okay, what was the path or the road network most likely route that was taken? In addition to that, what if I want to see some attribution against it? This one in particular is calling for speed along the route, but you can also, and we will, toggle, hey, show ADAS map on the, or data on the map. So for example, slope, curvature, things like that, that would be meaningful to an embedded navigation system. So as to, particularly if it's autonomous, to say, hey, I can't go super fast because this is a very curvy road, right? Something to govern and provide intelligence based on location. Additionally, and this is something we talked about a little bit earlier, we'll look at this site and you're more than happy to drill in more on your own, but this gives you a sense of our concept of layering, right? And attributes within layers. So for example, on the theme of ADAS, which is Advanced Driver Assistance System, you can see what comes in for functional class 1, right? Limited access, a major type highway, right? So for this particular layer, you're going to get these attributes. And the list is fairly exhaustive. Again, you can see this is only going to the C's. So it gives you a feel and you can investigate. We'll look at that site or that page itself here in just a moment. And then we're going to look at our routing demo. This is our new routing or newest version of the API, version 8, which has numerous routing capabilities or APIs embedded in, if you will, kind of the suite we mentioned before, including isoline routing, etc. So this link will be provided to you. In fact, I don't think at this point you need a HERE account to access this, but I can't say for sure because I do have a HERE account. All right, so without further ado, let's just jump into them. We talked about, and this goes back to actually the first page, the end of the account setup. This is the location where you're going to be able to find documentation on these APIs. And of course, at any point, you can feel free to just search for something. If you don't feel like drilling, leverage the search capability. We pointed you to, once you have your account, how to leverage this 3.1 demo suite. And as you'll see, there are a ton of demos available. Clearly, we're not going to try to exhaust that on this call, but feel free to explore. It might help you come up with some ideas or see some of the capabilities and or help you in terms of using the APIs and code examples.
So quick question here, Steve. I think this is one of the most important pages for them to really get creative in terms of what all I can do. So if they want to basically see the code behind any of these examples, how does that work?
Exactly. And we're going to kind of show how that looks. And that's, through sort of this continuum of building on, the examples. This is the repository, but like, for example, the simple map display, which is this first one right here. Okay, it literally is just that, a simple map display. But if I go to my browser, select more tools and developer tools, I can see, of course, the code behind this map. That is not necessarily the code for the API per se, but it gives you, and Jonathan, feel free to speak more to this. You got more developer acumen than I do, but what can be leveraged?
Do you mind if I drive on the screen share, Steve?
Absolutely.
Okay. Looks like I need you to stop screen sharing so I can take over. All right. I think you should be able to see my screen now.
Yep.
So continue on from this view, right? So I think you called it out well. This full list allows you to start thinking about different use cases and actually seeing what that interaction would look like. But more importantly, understanding how to code it, right? And so I think a good start is a simple map view, right? So it's all about just creating a map, as Steve mentioned, that you can scroll around, interact, toggle layers, etc. So as a developer, right, if I want to understand how to display this outside of documentation, I can open developer tools as Steve did. I can go to sources what we do is we put it in the same map that has HTML. And for most of you developers, you probably know that typically you do the HTML one page, and then you have JavaScript and some other tools, right, and some other pieces. But we tried actually to leave most of it in the front end. And I think they may have changed the logic here a bit. But effectively, what we just need to do is find the div that's the map.
So for the not so technical audience, Jonathan, when you say on the front end, meaning it is all in the browser page itself, not on the server side, right?
That's right. It's on the browser. So when you open DevTools, you will be able to see the logic that's needed to actually do the piece, right? So let me just find this segment of code here. One sec.
That is quite interesting, the way websites are evolving now. Behind a lot of popular websites, whether it be Google websites and other websites, there is a lot of code right in the browser, so that the responsiveness is really, really good. So the good news is responsiveness. The bad news to them is that that code is visible to everybody, and it's good for, for example, developers and programmers and things like that. So you can see how a company is trying to do interesting things and that sort of thing.
Exactly right. Yeah. So for example, here, right, I'm able to actually see this is the code that actually instantiates that map. And so just security-wise, whether it's HTTPS, it allows you to then set the API key, and I think that's what you're alluding to, right? The security piece. Because the API key here, for example, is visible to anybody, right? And so there are security practices for this. For example, rotating these credentials periodically. Of course, it doesn't matter for this project, but for production ready, right? It's about being able to rotate and change this so that it doesn't get compromised, right? But the easy piece here, of course, is being able to see default layers, reference that div, that's map container, and a few things to set up the UI. And these are effectively all the lines of code that you need to actually just create this map and start interacting with it. And then the use cases start getting a bit more and more complex, and you can again start digging through those pieces of code the same way I did here. So go into JavaScript examples and clicking on v3.1, and then this is the JavaScript file for that specific page. So, wait there if there's any questions so far on how I found this. Not, I'll hand it back over to you, Steve.
Yes, Steve showed right through the browser developer tools and how to basically go look at the sources, right? So maybe Steve, you can walk us through that one more time because most of the audience may not be doing it, right?
Let me get back to sharing here. That's right screen.
This is just a basic.
Let me know when you can see.
Yes, we can.
So, and of course, being Chrome, I've had to update it, 3 times in the last, 9 days. So it's still asking me to do another update. But when you hit the drop down over on the top right side, you'll see more tools and developer tools, and that's where Jonathan started to dig in.
There you see a tab that says sources, right? Elements, console, sources. And so that's what Jonathan was looking at, the folder structure, where you can look at the JavaScript.
Yep. Exactly. And so there, if you click on simple map, then you'll see the right-hand side populate with the code. So it's already highlighted, but you just need to click on it, Steve. So simple map.
On the map, it's, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So no need to start from scratch, borrow the code, to make some minor modifications, adapt it, trim it, whatever.
Exactly.
All right, so good. And if that's an area where we need to dig into more next week, we certainly can. Got 3 more things to try to get through. We're doing okay. I just want to be sensitive to SEMCOG and City of Detroit. This is one of those demos as well. In terms of that page we shared, the idea here, and this goes back to when we talk about attribution per layer, right? So this is route match extension, and if I use an example, you can either populate CSV format, GPX format, do submit, and it's going to say, okay, based on this input trace, this is the most likely route. right? And it happens to be coded, and you can see the response here. But it happens to be coded to show speed. That's the idea. But if I also, it allows you to show ADAS data on the map. So as I click that, you start to see these tiles pop up, right? So when we talked about ADAS, we, curvature and slope tend to be the two front and center attributes. So the idea that this demonstrates is, okay, I can leverage a location service API, but I can also get attribution on top of that call. That's kind of the whole point of this demonstration. Without drilling in too much, and we spoke to it a little bit, but this gives you a feel of layers, and there are a lot of them. But again, this may be something that spurs some curiosity and thought and creativity on your parts. So feel free to, and the link's been provided. But this goes hand in hand with the aforementioned demo. And last but not least, and I'm going to try to keep this fairly quick given the time, but this is, and again, link provided, but this is our routing V8 demo. So I'm going to just go ahead real quickly, and let's say I'm going to start from my favorite, Soldier Field. And I will say, I don't like, you can of course code it. If you already know what your origin destination is, you can do that, but you can leverage a search field. I'm going to call that out. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to start here. So I'm going to route from, okay? And for destination, I'm going to go ahead and find, let's say I flew in because I'm not local and I want to get back to Chicago O'Hare International Airport. So if I start typing that in, all right, O'Hare, Chicago, that should take me to the airport. And lo and behold, it does. So if I right click on that point of interest and I route to it, now my route's going to be processed from Soldier Field to the airport. Let me shrink this guy a little bit so you can see. And the output, and this is of course the most basic type of routing, but the output's going to show you a summary of the trip, how far it is, how long it's expected to take based on the mode that you selected. It's going to show you the maneuvers along the route. It's going to show you the turn-by-turn actions, but there's no result here. And that's because we didn't ask for it. We can select this box in terms of turn-by-turn, and then that starts to get populated. So there's a lot of feedback that you can get from this. You can also build on it. So, and clearly in the interest of time, I'm not going to exhaust this, but some things, particular things to call out is mode of transportation. Not unlike the ice line routing we talked about a little bit. Maybe you're walking, in which case it probably wouldn't take 37 minutes. It'd probably take 37 hours, right? Or truck. And again, those modes of transportation factor in how they would have to, what would be navigable for that mode of transportation. Maybe it's a bicycle, maybe it's a scooter, etc. You can also, and we talked a little bit about traffic and weather, you can drive the departure time. Maybe I want to do it now, or maybe at a given departure time, factoring conditions and congestion potentially. And maybe that's a way to back into when's the best time to do that. You can also include EV parameters. We're not going to get too much into that, as I think it's probably not super applicable. You can also tell it what to avoid. Maybe you don't want to pay tolls. You know what? I've got $1.50 in my pocket and I'm just not going to hit a toll road right now. There's a whole lot more we can do with this. I want to just take 1 minute here though and show you, this is the basic simple routing, and actually worth calling out. You'll see the information on the call, but you also see like the details of the call. You can copy it. So in your demo, if I were to copy this and paste it, you're going to see the exact coding or exact API call based on the parameters that you set. So this is a very valuable tool to get used to some of the capabilities of the router and what they actually look like in terms of how you leverage them. When I selected new tab, it's saying, okay, what tab do you want? I can do another instance of just basic routing. I can go to ice-line routing, which in this case is exactly what I want to do. So staying with the, we can continue with Soldier Field setting and origin. And in the most simple application, okay, we're going to drive. We can either select, we want this ice-line routing, or basically a distance, if you will, or time. Let's select time. If I've got 10 minutes, how far can I go from this point? So this asks for it in the form of seconds. So 10 minutes would be 600 seconds. if I populate 600 seconds, you're going to see a polygon based on driving tell you, okay, here's about how far you can go in 10 minutes. What if I'm walking? That's going to get a whole lot smaller. In fact, so small, it's probably hard to see, but it's there. Now, if I were to say, you know what, I get that, but what if I have twice? I want to compare a couple different metrics, right? So I'll stay with distance, but now I'm going to double it. You know, what if I say I've got 20 minutes of walking? Why did I error out here? Because I don't think I actually put in an origin. So now you've got two polygons laid over each other. And just conceptually, and again, this may be an opportunity to compare and contrast modes of transportation from walking to public transportation, or maybe I'm in a truck, which has restrictions that a car might not have, etc. So again, being sensitive of time, I wanted to at least show you some of the capabilities. And this, what's nice about this, as you open this up and start building tabs, you can overlay and really kind of start to exercise your creativity in terms of what am I trying to answer and what am I trying to show. So Jonathan, you probably have some really good words of wisdom to pile on, but I know we're running a bit short here.
I think you did an excellent job, Steve. So this kind of shows how you can piece all these things together. We could probably dig more into it next call if needed.
Yeah, I mean, the routing conversation could take an hour by itself in terms of the capabilities, but the idea here is a little bit of a teaser and two follow-ups, right? Go to leverage the documentation guides in terms of, you know, that we shared from developer.here.com, but feel free to, you know, beat around on some of these demos. You're not going to hurt anything, and just a good chance to get some exposure and maybe even help plant some seeds. So with that said, we've got about 8 minutes, and this might be a good time for City of Detroit, I believe, is on. So I apologize if I ate up your time.
So first of all, again, you know, a lot of information presented. This thing is being recorded. The documents are going to be posted on the hackathon website, so you can go through at your own pace. But a lot of good information. And again, you can bring, so you can set up your account today. All the details are provided. Start messing with things. And if you have questions, bring them, you know, to the session next Friday. And hopefully you will be all prepared. And, you know, however you want to basically leverage the platform, you know, Steve and Jonathan and others are available to sort of answer your questions and help you out.
And we'll get the documents we shared converted to PDF and uploaded on the site.
So somebody's asking a question. Yan Chao is asking the question saying, is it possible to export the data with the to
meaning?
Yes, so,
yeah, go ahead, John.
Yes, so I'll answer really quick, and then I think we need to transfer over. But yes, so those RESTful API calls return to you a JSON object with all the points you need to draw that polyline. If you need to draw it somewhere else or parse it or understand it later, you can do that because we responded to you with as a data model.
Thank you.
I wonder if with that, if there are no questions, Stephen, do you want to show us anything?
Sure. Let me just share. So the Detroit's open data portal is just data.detroitmi.gov, or you can Google Detroit Open Data. You should find it. Pretty well organized by 8 different categories. You'll probably be most interested in transportation or public health. Overall, we do have 149 data sets. 115 of those have spatial components to them. Just clicking at transportation, you'll see we have 13 data sets, typically around public transit routes, stops. We also have the GTFS feed for DDOT available, if you want to tap into that. And then public health, a number of data sets, 22, related to all kinds of lead testing, youth health, things of that nature.
It's interesting. There is a data set about youth riskful behavior data set. Like, I mean, it's quite interesting that they have a data set about youth and, their activities and assessing risk.
Yep. Just wanted to point out, as mentioned, we do have Geocoder. You'll find it if you scroll down and go to the base units tool. Open it here, and we have a Geocoder tool here. You just copy and paste your addresses, and it'll kick out lat longs. Also, council district. If you want to do any analysis across council districts, there are 7 city council districts in the city of Detroit. They're generally equally populated. With the new census, they have to be redrawn. 10 years ago, they were equally populated. If you do have any questions, we have an FAQ page on top, including instructions on how to use the APIs that are available with our data sets. Additionally, we have a contact page if you have any questions. We do have staff members that monitor these. It kicks an email to our team. So if you have any questions, we can be pretty responsive with getting back to you.
Thank you, Stephen. And we also, the teams will also have access to SEMCOG data portal, and that information was shared in the last information session, and that information is also available on the hackathon website. So basically here to get as much information as you can about these platforms, these data sets, you're welcome to bring other data sets. So the most important thing is you forming your teams and thinking of topics that you'd like to tackle. What kind of problems do you want to address around mobility, health, and well-being, or some sister topics that you are passionate about. I did miss, I think, a couple of students that are here. Anna, so can you tell us a little bit about you and your department? Which department are you from?
Hi, Dr. Chindams.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, sure, Anna. So Anna is another candidate in our Global Executive PhD program. She works at American Axle. And Oluwani Femi?
Hello.
So tell us.
I'm a civil engineering PhD student, second year at Wayne State University. And this is my first time joining.
Okay, so if you missed the clearly you missed the last information session, so it's on the on the hackathon website. Glad that you're here. So you have another fellow student from Bedan Kanal, who is also a PhD student in civil. That's on the session.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, and get the message out and help your fellow students, if they have an interest in this space, get them to basically register and maybe form teams with you guys. Faraz, you just came in, I saw, so we just finished the session, but it is recorded, it's going to be posted.
Oh, sorry, I was in another meeting and I just get out of that meeting. So sorry I missed that. I will definitely watch the recording. Thank you, Dr. Chino.
Sure. And by the way, please promote the hackathon through your social networks and all that to raise the awareness. And by the way, if it turns out that the dates, because some of the faculty are concerned if starting the hackathon on a Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, does it present too many challenges for undergrad students that might be taking a lot of classes during the day? So if you hear a lot of those concerns, please let us know so that we can potentially explore, adjusting the start time or the date for the hackathon to make sure that, we can accommodate as many students as possible in the hackathon. We're limiting the cap to 150 students. So with that, we have 60 seconds. Any final questions? Comments to Steve or Jonathan or Stephen? Okay.
Quick question to Steve. So the here map, do you offer 3D models of a city, for example?
We do have 3D city models, and Jonathan, you may know off the top of your head, I believe that's premium content though. I don't know that that's going to be available. I don't think it will be to the limited plan, unfortunately.
That's correct.
And
Okay.
Steve, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, by the way, seeing what all you guys are showing, you know, I mean, in some other academic courses, we want to incorporate the platforms and things like that, and we can definitely talk to Charity and hear about, you know, the terms. But some of these free accounts with limited, you know, with limits, are these open for an extended period for students and such?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no term.
Okay.
And even when, you know, if we have, you know, let's say a enterprise customer that's been onboarded, all of these services have some degree of a free tier, right? So there's capabilities throughout, but yeah, this isn't this, you know, trial and is going to expire in 30 days. There are transaction limits within those 30 days, and they'll reset the next 30 days. But absolutely, yeah, please continue to build. That's the entire goal. We want to expose and dig in and stay in.
Wonderful. So if there are no questions, again, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, Stephen, for joining. And thanks to my colleagues that are here. So we will get this information, you know, Mark, I will get this recording posted on the hackathon website. Please do encourage, you know, fellow students that you think might be interested to come to the hackathon. You know, we're trying to basically you know, give up to $5,000 of prizes. I got another $1,000 this morning through the Dean of the College of Engineering. So the business school is putting in 1,000. You know, here is putting in 3,000. So, you know, good prizes, but would like to see, you know, a lot more students. And so please get the message out. And you guys have a wonderful weekend. You know, if you guys are interested in learning more, so see you next Friday for the next information session.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you very much. You too.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.